Hi everyone, I am going to discuss the editorial section of the Hindu newspaper dated 15 June 2023. So let's start. So our first article is titled as "The Next Finance Commission Will Have a Tough Task." So this passage is particularly discussing the upcoming appointment of a finance commission by the government. So the commission, so it is telling you the duties of the finance commission. It is responsible for determining how much of the center's tax revenue should be allocated to the states. So that particular allocation, state allocation, is the vertical share, and how that allocation should be distributed. So the distribution of that allocation among the states is the horizontal sharing formula. The vertical sharing formula refers to the proportion of the center's tax. So this is the definition of the vertical sharing formula. It refers to the proportion of the center's tax that is allocated to the states. It determines the vertical distribution of funds from the central government to the governments. In the passage, it is mentioned that currently the center gives away 41% of its tax pool to the states. 41%. So, on the other hand, the horizontal sharing formula, it determines how the allocated funds are distributed among all the states. It aims to ensure that there is equitable distribution of resources among states, which is based on a certain criteria. The exact formula may vary depending on Finance Commission's recommendations and specific factors such as population, area, fiscal capacity, and development indicators. So, this designing a fair and efficient horizontal distribution formula has been a challenge, often leading to criticism of being inefficient or unfair. So, here it is saying that designing a particular kind of horizontal distribution formula, so a state might say that it has not been allocated funds equitably, so that might lead to the criticism of the criteria or the formula, since they are of being inefficient or unfair on the grounds of the wrong allocation of funds. The Finance Commission's task is to strike a balance between these two formulas. So, objective is to ensure that funds are distributed fairly and that poorer states receive adequate compensation from richer states, which is very obvious that the poor should be helped to develop further, and everybody should be, there should be no bias when it comes to distribution of allocation of funds, while considering various socio-economic factors and maintaining fiscal sustainability. So this means that if socio-economic factors such as the population, the area of the state, the fiscal capacity of the state, the development indicators, those particular factors should be taken care of when deciding which state should be allocated how much funds and how these funds should be distributed. Now, in the past, the Finance Commission's recommendations were not as critical because the centre had other means of compensating states. However, with changes in government policies, such as the reduction in the public sector investments and the abolition of the Planning Commission, the Finance Commission now plays a larger role in India's fiscal federalism. Now, this particular paragraph says that the centre had other means of compensating. Uh, they were not the Finance Commission's recommendations were not as critical, and since there have been in with the changes in the government policies, such as the reduction in investments in the public sector and the abolition of the Planning Commission, the Finance Commission, it has a it is playing a great role in shaping India's fiscal federalism. One major issue of debate will be the horizontal distribution formula. Now, the horizontal distribution formula is that how much funds should be distributed to the states, as states are likely to demand a higher proportion of centre's tax pool. Now, every state will try to it will try to demand a higher proportion of the funds. However, given the center's expenditure needs and borrowing constraint, now the center also has its limitations. It has to it has to take care of its own expenditure needs. It has to there are constraints, there are limitations to its borrowing funds as well. So there may not be much room for increasing the allocation further. So all the states which are demanding a higher proportion, that might not be possible for everybody, since given those certain limitations for the central government. Now, the passage also highlights conflicts related to the use of population figures and revenue deficit grants in determining state allocations. Changes in the base year for population figures have led to protests. Now, from the states that have successfully controlled population growth, now there, you know, all the states who have controlled population growth, they might feel that they have not been allocated funds correctly, since you know the center will think that this particular state has a reduction in its population. Now it will not need much higher funds than the states which already have a large number of population. So obviously there will be protests from such kind of states. Additionally, determining a state's deficit as a result of fiscal incapacity or fiscal irresponsibility has proven challenging for previous finance commissions. Now, states' deficit is also an important factor which needs to be taken care of while allocating funds. But these states a state's deficit, which is a result of the fiscal incapacity or fiscal irresponsibility, it has been proven challenging for the previous finance commissions. So that will be the kind of a tough task, as it is described in the title of the article. The passage mentions a divide between northern and southern states. So it is also mentioning there is a north southern divide, with the southern states generally performing better in terms of infrastructure, private investment, social indicators, and the rule of law. This divide poses a challenge for the government in defining the terms of reference for the Finance Commission and for the Commission itself in ensuring equitable compensation for poorer states. Now, it is seen that southern states, they generally perform better in terms of all these factors, but it is itself a challenge for the government, so that they choose all those factors which ensure equitable compensation for poorer states as well. So there is a divide between the northern and the southern states in terms of these particular factors. Two specific issues the Finance Commission should focus on. So these two particular issues, which are the increasing use of cesses and surcharges by the center instead of raising taxes, and government spending on freebies or populist schemes. Okay, let's understand first what is a cess and what are surcharges. Okay, cess is basically it's a tax on tax. Now, for example, the Indian government, it collects a cess on education and is use it utilize it specifically for that purpose alone. That is education. So now let's understand this with the help of an example. For an education cess of 3%, where the personal income tax is 30%. So the income tax, it is 30% and cess is 3%. So the total tax rate is 30% of income tax plus 3% of 30% income tax. Now, a surcharge it is particularly applied to those person whose income is more than 50 lakhs. So it is not collected for any specific cause, but can be used for any reason as the union government sees fit. So the passage is trying to say that the finance commission should focus on the increasing use of these particular type of instruments by the center instead of raising taxes and government spending that on freebies as in governments try to spend their money on freebies such as free electricity, free water for the public. So the passage suggests that guidelines should be established for when cesses and surcharges can be levied and a formula to cap the amount raised. It also emphasizes that there should be a need on the for restraint on freebies to ensure long-term fiscal sustainability. So the passage is trying to tell that there should be restraint on the amount of freebies so that there is fiscal sustainability in the long run, and such kind of instruments can be used to boost up the fiscal health of the country. In conclusion, the finance commission's role in determining the allocation of tax revenue to states and the formula for distribution is crucial. In India's fiscal federalism, the commission faces challenges related to horizontal distribution, population figures, revenue deficit, grants, and addressing regional disparities, as we have studied in this particular passage. It is also urged to address the increasing use of cesses and surcharges and the need for restraint on populist spending of freebies. So our next article is titled as Male-Centric Medicine is Affecting Women's Health. Male-centric, something that is surrounding only men, something that focuses on men. The passage discusses the gender disparity, that means discrimination on the basis of gender in medicine and healthcare, particularly in context of clinical trials, treatment, and diagnosis. Despite growing evidence of physiological differences between men and women, the medical field often treats women as smaller versions of men. This approach neglects the unique needs and responses of women to medications and treatment. So the passage is trying to discuss the gender disparity that happens in the field of medicine and healthcare. So it says that there are physiological differences between both men and women, and but the medical field it is often treating men as the smaller versions, women or as the smaller versions of men. So this approach is neglecting the needs, the clinical needs of women to medications and treatments. In India, where generic drug production and consumption are prevalent, or India is the pharmacy of the world, as to say, the gender disparity in clinical trials has significant implications. Studies have shown that women's bodies may respond differently to the components of generic drugs. So it is saying that studies have shown that women's bodies they react different to every drug, and it might lead to issues such as overdosing and inadequate dosing due to their underrepresentations in clinical trials. So it is trying to say that women are underrepresented in clinical trials, and that can lead to issues such as overdosing or inadequate dosing of generic drugs. The disparity extends beyond treatment to testing and diagnosis. Mental health, for example, shows higher rates of depression and anxiety among women globally. So research shows that mental health there are higher rates of depression and anxiety among women. However, women's mental health issues have often been overlooked or misunderstood. Similarly, cardiac issues or the issues related to heart, they are now acknowledged to have slightly higher prevalence in women. So they are often misdiagnosed and undertreated compared to men. The exclusion of women from clinical trials and research projects addressing sex agnostic critical illnesses such as cancer and heart disease, they have resulted in a limited understanding of the sex specific symptoms and responses to treatment. There are research gaps in such kind of illnesses, including the breast or endometrial cancers, and pregnancy related issues can be attributed to an apathy towards women's health issues. So this particular passage emphasizes that there's a need for policy intervention, and there should be increased research. It suggests that women should be considered as an individual category in healthcare, and they need equal attention, and they should be their specific needs should be dealt with. The passage also calls for India to address these issues and advocate for women's health. Now that India has the G20 presidency, and it should be aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals on women's health. So moving on to the next article, it is titled as the strengthening the ICDS scheme as the integrated child development services. So the passage discusses there is an importance of strengthening India's social sector schemes, particularly the ICDS, to address the prevalent issues of stunting, wasting, and anemia among children and women. So it focuses on children aged 0 to 6 years, pregnant women, and lactating mothers, aiming to break the cycle of malnutrition, morbidity, and mortality through non formal preschool education and comprehensive support. So, these particular categories, as the children who are aged between 0 and 6, women who are lactating and pregnant, they particularly face issues of malnutrition and mortality. So they should be tackled with the help of non-formal preschool education and support. So these studies have highlighted the positive impact of intervention in nutrition, education, and health during early childhood on human capital development, particularly in developing countries. So, various studies have shown that when there was an intervention, there was a help with nutrition, education, and health during early childhood. It had a positive impact on the human capital development, particularly in the case of developing countries. So the research has shown that they have ICDS has significantly improved cognitive achievements, especially among girls and especially among the economically disadvantaged families. Children who were exposed to ICDS in their early years completed more grades of schooling. So there was an increase in the years of schooling, average years of schooling, and had improved enrollment rates compared to those who didn't have access to the program. So there were more enrollment among children who were exposed to such kind of schemes as compared to those who weren't. So, while acknowledging the progress made by the ICDS, there is a need for a thorough reassessment of approaches to further strengthen the program. Empowering Anganwadi workers who play a crucial role in the ICDS, it is very essential. These workers are often overwhelmed with responsibilities related to child nutrition, health, and education in their communities. So, by increasing the number of Anganwadi workers in each center, that workload can be reduced. So, there will be better outcomes, and there will be better improved test scores reduce rates of malnutrition, stunting, and then there will be increase in enrollment rates, decrease in the number of dropout rates. So implementing this approach would also create job opportunities for local residents. So there will be employment benefits as well, particularly women, resulting in creation of 1.3 million new jobs across India. That's a huge number. The proposal to empower these workers through the Saksham Anganwadi and the Poshan 2.0 initiative is a centrally sponsored scheme that requires collaboration with state governments for effective implementation. So there should be these particular initiatives. They need collaboration with state governments so that there is effective implementation of such kind of schemes. Now, to maximize the potential of these schemes and address the challenges which are persisting in the society, there should be further investments which are needed in the training program of these workers. Infrastructural improvements are required, such as functional sanitation facilities, and there should be access to pure water, and they are very necessary for all these centers nationwide. So, in summary, the passage emphasizing there is a need to strengthen and empower these workers to improve the nutritional and health outcomes of children aged 0 to 6 years. It highlights the positive impact of early childhood interventions and policies which suggest strategies to enhance the effectiveness of such kind of programs. That includes adding more workers, investing in the training, and improving infrastructure. It is titled as the Ukraine-Russia war fallout, Eurozone in recession. So this passage discusses the recent recession experienced by the Eurozone countries in the first 3 months of 2023. The Eurozone's GDP contracted by 0.1% in first quarter, similar following a similar decline in the previous sector. This decline meets the definition of a recession, which is two consecutive quarters of economic output contraction. So this means to say that we such kind of contraction can be called recession, and this decline, it meets the it fulfills the criteria of the contraction being called a recession, since output contraction. Germany, the largest economy in the eurozone. uh, so you can remember that Germany is the largest economy in the eurozone. It slid into recession with a 0.3% shrinkage in output, and other countries like Ireland, Netherlands, Lithuania, Estonia, Malta, and Greece, they also experienced GDP declines. So there was a mild recession in the eurozone. It can be attributed to spike in food and energy prices following the Russia's attack on Ukraine. So there were high inflation rates, particularly in gas and electricity, since eurozone, it imports all such kind of products, particularly gas and electricity, resulted in reduced household spending. Now inflation 10.6%, the highest since the creation of eurozone in 1999. While inflation, you can remember this particular year that eurozone was created in 1999. So while inflation in gas and electricity has decreased since then, inflation in food items remained high at 15.1%. Overall inflation in May 2023 was still above the European Central Bank's target of 2%. So the inflation was above the target of 2%. The passage also highlights the decline in household spending and government consumption expenditure during the first quarter of 2023. Household spending fell by 0.3%, and the government consumption expenditure, it decreased by 1.6%. However, there was a increase in gross fixed capital formation investment during the enough to offset the declines in household and government spending. It is worth noting that despite the recession, the unemployment level stood at 6.5%, the lowest since 2000. Now, this is something to note. These are some economists argue that the minimal decline in GDP and strong labor. So, in summary, the Eurozone entered the recession in the first quarter of 2023, with all members experiencing a contraction in GDP. This recession can be attributed to the high inflation rates and reduced household and government spending that was caused obviously by the Ukraine-Russia conflict. So there was, but it suggests that the relatively small decline in GDP and low employment, they also suggest that the recessionary environment is there, but it may be mild. So these charts show the percentage change over the previous quarter in GDP at market prices for the different countries for the eurozone as a whole. Uh, this chart, the chart 3 shows the overall inflation for food, gas, and electricity. And the chart 4, it shows the percentage change over the previous quarter in household and government spending and CF. So let's come to the vocabulary. Our first word is ameliorating. Ameliorating means, to make something better or improve, especially a difficult or an undesirable situation. So if you had to form a sentence out of it, it would be the government implemented policies to ameliorate the government crisis, embolden to give someone courage. So you can remember the meaning of this word from the word bold. Bold means courageous, something which is confident. To give someone courage or confidence, typically through support or encouragement. Uh, Sentence, the positive feedback from the colleagues emboldened her and inspired her to fulfill her dreams. Auxiliary means referring to a person or thing that provides additional support. So auxiliary is A for auxiliary and A for additional support or assistance. So the sentence would be the hospital appointed auxiliary staff to aid in administrative tasks. That means the hospital it appointed uh, assistant staff to aid in administrative tasks. So the next word is fallout, the unintended or undesired result that occurs as a consequence of a particular event, as we have read in the last article, where there were the consequence of the Russia and Ukraine conflict, or the fallout of the Ukraine conflict, is the recession in the Eurozone. So the sentence is the company experienced financial losses as a fallout of the global economic downturn. Uh, and the last word is apathy. It means the lack of interest, enthusiasm, or concern towards something. So the sentence which can be formed is the students' apathy towards their studies was reflected in their poor academic performance. So that's it from my side. Thank you.